Good afternoon, shopkeepers and do-it-yourselfers out there. Today we're working on a 2013 Silverado with a 4.8 liter. Going to be replacing the radiator in it. You'll find it right up there in the front of the engine. This obviously is for the do-it-yourselfer that maybe need a little bit of coaching. And so I took the radiator cap off to let some pressure off of it because it is hot, but the fluid level is low. And I've already squeezed the clamp, slid it back off the upper hose. Let's pull it off the inlet port of the radiator. We'll release that loom. I just use a pocket screwdriver and hang on a minute. I'll shove that pocket screwdriver down inside that triangular area on the rearward side of it and kind of push back, and that'll release that lock tab. See, yeah, that pushes in that little tab so it'll come up out of that spot, and you can get your radiator hose out. Then we're going to pull the top engine cover off, get it out of the way, and just raise up. It's got two little grommets that it sets in. Set this over here out of the way. And got a vacuum line here. I just put a pair of pliers on that. Not necessarily squeezing it, but using it as an anchor to pry out. You just got a little, like a squeeze job there that it goes in. And that vacuum hose is plastic, so don't be real rough with it. I loosen these two clamps there and right here, and it pulls up off that grommet there. And then let's see, push that one out of the loom there. And it's got another loom just like the one up here that will release. Yeah, that released really easy. You can take and pull that Christmas tree down out of there, but it seems to me like more often than not they break. I like to keep them intact, so I just leave it on there and unclip it. Just squeeze that little tab in, it comes right out of that little hole that it goes into. We'll set that out of the way. Now we got enough room to get the radiator hose back out of the way. And we got a lot more room in here. And all we got to do is unhook that fan and that fan. You don't have a mechanical fan driven off your water pump. You got two electric fans, a low speed and a high speed. And so let's release those. I believe they're just squeeze connectors. Yeah, just squeeze on the little tab and pull down and kind of wiggle. Don't just yank, because you could pull the terminals out of the connector, leave the connector on. Same thing with that one. There we go, got it. And I believe we have to remove the fasteners for the transmission oil cooler. And actually, they just clip on there, so we can leave those little bolts in there. We can leave them in there. That one sure acts like it's snug. Might remove that bottom one. And get that bolt pulled out. Turn that up that way. The only thing about leaving these in, like you got a bunch of catchers sticking up there in the way, and they'll catch on everything as you're pulling it up out of there, but I can handle it. And we got two fasteners on the fan assembly, one here and one here, and it just pulls up out of there. It sets down here in the bottom in a little pocket. You'll see when I pull it out. Two 13mm head fasteners holds that in, and it's pretty much loose. And just kind of pushed it back. Move your lines out of the way. See what I was talking about? You kind of get a hand there in the way. I took that catcher out of the way. It's got a little retainer on there, so the bolt is secured onto the little loom for the transmission oil cooler. Somebody had a job to do to stick that bolt into this piece of tin and put that retainer on that bolt, so these three pieces are one. Yep, he gets an A+ on that. Now your fan assembly just pulls right up out of there. And you can see it's dripping antifreeze off of it. Good time to go ahead and check both your fans. They spin, they sound okay. And I don't see any damage, any breaks. Let's see, there's where it sets down into a little pocket on that side and on the driver's side too. So you just have two fasteners that holds it in. Now there's your radiator. Now we need to slip these retainer protectors back. And you might have a truck that has an oil cooler, engine oil cooler, and those lines would go into a cooler right here. But this one doesn't have it, so we don't have the engine oil cooler lines. We just got the transmission oil. And the engine oil cooler lines are, I believe they're 3/8 line, and these are just 5/16. Or yeah, I believe that's 5/16 line. But anyway, they snap in, they're quick connector, so we need to get a pick and pull that retainer clip off of there. Slide this clamp back for the, I believe this is a bypass hose, and loosen the clamp for the lower radiator hose, and take one bolt here and one bolt there. They're both 13mm bolts, and that radiator will come right up out of there. These clips are like an E. You just stick a little pick or something down in there and pull up on one end, and I'm trying to do it one-handed, but they're not hard to get out. Get one end up out of there. See, it's kind of setting up on the shoulder, and I can get in there, and there we go. And well, it flew down there, but I should be able to find it okay. I wouldn't have dropped it if I had both hands on the job. And I think, yeah, there it is, laying right there on the radiator hose. I believe they come with a new radiator, and I'm not too awful worried about it. I've got a drawer full of them, so that one come off okay. Set them up there out of the way, and that's what I use. If I had both hands, I'd be using my little pocket screwdriver too. And but once you get that clamp off there, just kind of twist and pull, and you'll get a little bit of spillage transmission fluid when you remove the bottom one, and that lubricates that lower radiator hose clamp. I'll get a clamp on this bypass hose on the lower radiator hose. That lower radiator hose, the clamp, it's easier to kind of grab down in there, squeeze it, and rather than try to pull it off with the tabs or tangs pointed to the side of the vehicle, I kind of rotate it around to where it's on the top, and then I grab a set pair of channel lock pliers it's just a lot easier to grab that way. It wants to stay on, we'll leave it on there. These clamps here, they're a little harder to work, but that tab is supposed to lock into that hole, and that holds that clamp open. But we didn't need to squeeze it that far. Anyway, that's all just water. We'll get that lower hose pulled off. There we go. Yeah, I had to get the vent hose off too. Didn't see it. The two bolts are out on that side. Just grab the radiator, lean it toward the engine, and pick it up out of there. Now it sets in these rubber grommets down there in the bottom, and the radiator core support. Get the light down there where you can see. Right down in there. And the two holes will be one's for a different engine size. And there's an extra assembly screw down in there. That's what that's for. That's for the air filter housing. Somebody done took it apart and busted that. Didn't put the screw back in it. Jiffy Lube or somebody like that. Anyway, we're ready to go together. This is a good time to dump a bunch of water in there and clean all this mess up. And if your AC condenser is fouled up with a bunch of bugs and grass and lint and stuff, you take a water hose jet and spray toward the front through the condenser and clean all that off, so you're getting good airflow across there. The more airflow you got there, the lower the temperature in the condenser, the lower the pressure going into your orifice tube through into your evaporator core, and the lower the temperature at the duct. And the lower the temperature of the duct, the lower the temperature of the driver and the passenger, and everybody's happy. Happy, happy, happy. So we get the new radiator, we'll start checking for comparison and make sure that we've got the retainer grommets up here at the top. Lots of times you got to take this hardware off. Sometimes you got to swap out hardware or add hardware to match what you have. And make sure you got a vent, a bypass, and your upper and lower are the same size and on the same side. Sometimes you can get the wrong stuff. When you get a radiator, there's several things you got to keep an eye out on. And that's to make sure that you get the right width, and to measure the width of your radiator, you measure between here And here, that's the width of the core. This is the core. And I've had it where sometimes I've had to change these out because they were the wrong size, and they may or may not have come with the new radiator. I don't remember. Anyway, then to get your lower radiator grommets off, there's a little tab right there. Just put a screwdriver in and push that tab in, and that grommet will come right off and slip right over onto the new radiator. And the pipe ID is the same, and it has the little quick release clips are already in there. All you got to do is just wipe off your existing transmission oil cooler pipes, and sometimes it wouldn't hurt to put a little smear of oil on them. That helps them to slide in a little easier, and when they slide in and snap, then you push those collars back over to keep them clips from maybe jumping off on you. And let's see what else we need to do. We need to get our retainer grommets, and probably have to push the sleeve out. So this has got a shoulder on it, so it's got to go in the same way. Otherwise, it won't hold the radiator in place. We'll put it back in the same way. And hope everybody's having a good spring so far. Memorial Day this weekend. The 108th or 9th running, I don't know, of the Indianapolis 500 this weekend. Got the radiator ready to set in. Make sure we don't have anything in the way. Everything's good to go. Radiator's not heavy at all. Just set it down in there and make sure your grommets go into the retainer holes in the core support. That's the lower hose on there. Yeah, I did forget to say that when you're checking your radiator for the proper one, check your port diameters. Make sure that they're the same size. I had everything where it was all right except for that. Had to send it back. I kind of picked the radiator up and slid it over to the driver's side a little bit so I could get that clamp. And I rotated it and set it on there where it was in its original location. That way it helped ensure for a good tight seal. And we'll get it slid back over. Ow. Now we'll go dropped into place. Now we can put this on there. Just kind of push and twist at the same time. There it snapped in. You didn't hear it, but I seen the clamp expand and drop. And that will not come out. Slide the keeper back on there. Same with this one. Slide the keeper back on there. Sometimes these keepers aren't even on there. I've never seen one come off. line, that is. But I suppose it could happen. And we'll put the two bolts, two 13mm head bolts back in that secure the radiator, and just move your grommet one side to the other to get it lined up. Tighten that down. And I got my hand in the picture there. That's not a very good camera operator. There we go. These bolts are tight. Probably just 15 to 20 inch-pounds of torque. Just good and snug. You don't have to crank it down. You're not trying to hold a brake drum on or something like that. Now we got the fan assembly, and make sure that the retainer grommets are on top. And it just sets down on those clips in right here. That sets in right there in that little slot. Yeah. Make sure we're okay. And we're in place, and put the two 13mm head bolts in there. And probably about the same torque spec. You know, 1.5 ooga-doogas on your 3/8 impact would be plenty. Or you can ratchet it or wrench it. That's plenty tight. Plenty tight. Now we'll get them plugged in. Heard it click. There were no connector lock protectors to release. That's good. I hate those things. Snapped in. And we'll rotate that clip around. Get that bolt put in. Put this line retainer back in. Those are 10mm head bolts. And they just go into a little speed nut. So you don't want to crank them down to 85 foot-pounds. Just snug them up, and that's plenty. Well, all they do is just help support that, keep it from shaking and fracturing. They will do that. That's why I call it a loom rather than a bracket. Get down there. It didn't fit too good. Probably why it wasn't connected to start with. There. That got it. We'll get that other one tight. Now we'll go ahead and pull the radiator hose down into place so we can put the air intake module on. I guess call it a module because it's, call it a horn or whatever. Get the hoses up here out of the way. That dude sets down in there first, and then open that around the lower radiator hose. As I see, this one goes to that side, so it goes in right there. And when you put that on, make sure that your snorkel seal doesn't fold in, create an air leak, and air gets into the engine. It doesn't go through the mass airflow sensor, creates a problem. Same with this, but that's kind of hard to roll that, but you never know. Jiffy Lube. And don't forget to put your vacuum line in, and it's just gonna snap right in. And you notice there was an O-ring on there. Make sure it stays on and it doesn't get folded over. Oh well. Hear that snap? That's back secure. Reusable, not broke. Realign that little loom. We'll get them hoses hooked up and tighten up these two clamps. Okay, got all that on there and secure. Clamps tight. Clamps tight. The vent hose and the bypass hose are installed and the clamps are on. Make sure you get the clamps far enough back that you're behind the barb of the hose. And that's what I mean by the barb of the hose. You want your clamp up in this area so the hose doesn't blow off. And I did not unhook the mass airflow sensor. The vacuum line is connected. And let's see. Well, daggone it. And my phone ain't working. Okay, loosen this clamp and finagle and wiggle. Got that grommet to drop down over that little plug like this right here, retainer, and tighten that clamp back up. Now we're ready to set the engine cover on. You see those two little forks back here, plastic forks. The end of my flashlight's touching one and there's the other. They hook onto right there. So get the light out of the way. Then you got the two grommets. One goes on there and one goes on there. Sometimes spit on those or whatever. A little water on them. Makes them a little easier to clip into place. Can't work with my left hand. Well, we're engaged back there. There it goes. Anyway, now all you got to do is pour about 2.5, 3 gallons of 50-50 antifreeze right in the turtleneck. Start it up and run it. This will bleed itself pretty easy. You don't have to mess with it too much. We'll just run it. Make sure that you're up to your fill level there. Check your O-rings on your cap. Make sure they're good. And you'll be good to go. Fellas, I appreciate you watching. Share, like, and subscribe. Have a good day.